Hi, this is Alessio. Hope you're well. Welcome to this Bitcoin update. In this particular video, I want to take another fresh look at the chart of Bitcoin, especially at this recent pullback here to some important support levels. We came very close, in fact, to that trend line support that we see on the chart. So we'll have a quick look at the daily chart and also this weekly chart of Bitcoin and examine what these particular charts are telling us about Bitcoin and whether the uptrend is still intact or not. All right, guys, join me. All right, guys, welcome back. So in this video, I want to talk briefly about what's going on here in the daily chart, but also importantly in this video, I want to bring to your attention an important signal that could potentially trigger on Bitcoin on the longer time frame chart. I'll talk about this in a few minutes. First of all, let me just mention this. So you may remember, in the middle of March, about the 15th of March, I made a video. And in fact, you probably saw that video. Right about here, I said, look, be careful. We're about to see a potential pullback or correction in Bitcoin because of overbought conditions. Here's the video. Very short clip. Will come back.
But I think given how the MACD indicator has now become extremely overbought within the same range as we were back in November 2021, should be a cautionary signal that perhaps we could see some kind of pullback or weakness or correction.
All right, guys, welcome back. So as you saw when I was in Iran on the 15th of March, I was warning of this. So this is the chart I showed, and I said, look, we're reaching extreme overbought conditions based on the MACD, not seen since 2021, November 2021. And that usually follows a major pullback, some kind of correction, in fact, in the price. So while most people out there were calling for Bitcoin to go to the moon, we were saying, no, be cautious, because this usually follows a pullback or correction in the price, which is essentially what we got here, as we can see. Now, I should say, I did not know exactly how deep this pullback in Bitcoin was going to be, but nonetheless, I was warning in the member videos of some key support levels that Bitcoin could come down to. Here's a clip. Then the C wave would be the 100% projection of the A wave, which would take us down to approximately this level. The C wave could be within this region, between 59,700, or let's just say 60K approximately here, to 57,400, which is, by the way, convenient because in the middle there is the 100 EMA. Usually during pullbacks, especially after strong extended rallies, we usually do see a pullback to the 21 weekly moving average, this blue line we're seeing here. And I think that is a concern because we did not test that support. But at the moment, I'm not convinced just yet that the ABC correction is completed, that the C wave is bottomed. So as long as Bitcoin stays below resistance at 68,300, we may see the C wave extend a bit lower to maybe the support, 57,400 to 56K. All right, guys, so as you heard in the member videos in April, I was warning that Bitcoin could quite likely come down to the minimum to test this support level you're seeing here. This brown line on my chart, 57,400, which is just near this trend line support. And more recently, as you heard in the member video last week, I said, look, Bitcoin could actually come down and test this 21 weekly moving average, this blue line on my chart, which I should say it came very close to testing it. It came extremely close, near 56K. Didn't quite touch it exactly, but nevertheless, it came extremely close to that 21 weekly moving average. And in case you're wondering, well, so what? What does it matter? Because you see, guys, the 21 weekly moving average is a key level of support that Bitcoin usually tests even during uptrends. So while a lot of people out there are screaming, oh my God, Bitcoin is doomed, no. We said, as a matter of fact, this support at the 21 weekly usually gets tested in a healthy pullback. In fact, let me show you this. This is Bitcoin during the big uptrend from 2016, 2017. Notice how many times Bitcoin came to test this 21 weekly moving average here. As a matter of fact, twice here, third, fourth. And notice it bounced off from here as well. Okay, so it came down, tested the 21 weekly moving average here, bounced off. Tested it, boom, 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 bounced off, and so on and so on. You get the picture. Okay, by the way, in just a few minutes, I'm going to talk about a second important signal on this chart. We'll cover this in a few minutes. Now, so as you can see here on the chart of Bitcoin so far, beautifully, okay, beautifully, Bitcoin came down, came very close to the 21 weekly, and now we can see it's bouncing off. It's bouncing off at the moment from that 21 weekly moving average. So you can think of this as the 21 weekly moving average saying to Bitcoin, no, you know what? I don't want you. Get out of here. So in other words, Bitcoin is getting rejected by the 21 weekly moving average here. As I'm making this video, Bitcoin, as a matter of fact, is up. As we can see here, nice green bars here so far from that support as well. The support at the 57,400, the 2618 Fibonacci golden ratio extension. Okay, so far so good. And again, guys, to me, as I've been saying for the last several weeks, even my previous video last week, I mentioned again that I'm seeing this pattern, I'm seeing this structure on Bitcoin still as an ABC correction, as an ABC corrective pattern, which means that once this ABC correction completes, we could see much higher levels towards all-time highs. That still is my view, by the way. That has been my view for the last several weeks. That still is my view today. So, in summary, we just zoom back a little bit here. So, when Bitcoin was at the beginning of March, okay, right about here, this chart of overbought conditions on MACD, I would say this was the first shot that was fired against Bitcoin. You could think of that as the first major warning sign. Bullets were fired against Bitcoin. And we can see that Bitcoin did finally pull back here, as we can see, as we're expecting, and in fact came very close to that trend line. It came at the very minimum to the 57,400 support, that brown line, that 2-6-month extension. So far, so good. And remember, guys, as I've been saying for the last several weeks, as long as Bitcoin can respect and remain above the trend line, and also importantly above 50K, Bitcoin still remains in an uptrend. So there's nothing, in my view, scary about this pullback or correction, unlike many other analysts out there who are calling for doomsday. Oh my God, we're going into a bear market. No, we haven't broken the trend line. We have not broken key support. So again, as I've said before in previous videos, usually when you see a consolidation pattern like this, when you see a lot of pullbacks with overlapping structures like this, overlap, you can see how many overlaps we got here, by the way. When you see a lot of overlapping structures like this is indicative of consolidations or corrective patterns. And corrective patterns are still long-term bullish for Bitcoin, okay? So that's why I've been saying for the last several weeks, I consider this pattern still to be some kind of an ABC type correction, okay? So before I talk about this particular signal down here on my chart, which is quite important, by the way, which is that as long as Bitcoin remains above this key trend line support, which is about 56K, and also as long as it stays above 50K key support, okay, these two important levels are going to be extremely important for Bitcoin, okay? I would say anything with 21 weekly moving average, the lows we made recently near 56K to about 50K, this is going to be an important support zone for Bitcoin, which means as long as Bitcoin can protect and stay above that support zone between 56K and 50K, bulls still remain in control, and this uptrend could continue in the next several months towards all-time highs. And by the way, tomorrow in the members video on Sunday, I'll talk about the potential targets for Bitcoin should we continue this uptrend, which I think is quite likely. Now, the only thing that would change my mind about this bullish picture on Bitcoin, the only thing that would make me bearish on Bitcoin, which again, remember guys, I am not bearish, but the only thing that would make me change my mind is, as I'm sure you guessed it, is if Bitcoin were to break down impulsively, by impulsively means in a 5-wave structure, if Bitcoin were to break below these two important support zones. Again, 56K near this trend line support and 50K key support, key psychological support. In other words, if Bitcoin were to break down below both these support zones, both 56K, the trend line support, and 50K, then I would have to change my mind and become bearish. Why? Because breaking those key support zones would be like Bitcoin saying, arrivederci, goodbye, I'm out of here. Because that would be breaking key structural support, key market structure. So what I'm saying is if Bitcoin were to break market structure of breaking below the trend line and below 50K, then I would have no choice but to change my mind and become bearish, because that would be a break of trend. Now, let me say this. That is not something I expect is going to happen. So I think that's a lower probability. So personally, I'm not bearish on Bitcoin. As I've said in this video, so far, I consider this pullback in Bitcoin to key support like a 21 EMA, and we're still above the trend line support as well. So I think this is a healthy pullback, an ABC correction. Okay, nice pullback to the 21 weekly moving average here. And I still think bulls are in control, and we could see potentially all-time highs in the next several months. Again, as long as Bitcoin respects and remains above key structural support levels. I've mentioned the trend line, and as long as it stays above 50K support. Now, one last thing I want to mention here about Bitcoin. Now, I've mentioned something about this indicator about the stock markets, about the S&P, but I want to talk about it now in regards Bitcoin, which is pay attention very closely to what's happening here on the Stochastic RSI. Now, you can see the Stochastic RSI has gone into oversold territory. Now, let me say something about this. I only use this indicator in the way I'm going to show it to you today in an uptrend. I would never use this methodology in a downtrend. Okay, it's very important. But because Bitcoin is in an uptrend, obviously, it's above the trend line here as well. Okay, therefore, we can put the Stochastic RSI on the chart. Look at where it is right now. Notice that the Stochastic RSI currently is below 20, which means it is now currently oversold. Now, that is not the signal on its own. What's important is what happens when the stochastic RSI climbs out of oversold territory and moves above 20. Let me show you an example. Notice what happened here in, I think that was, in September, October of last year. So notice stochastic RSI went into oversold territory. Okay, that was when Bitcoin dropped down here into the 25K, I think 26K, 25K region here. So notice what happened when the stochastic RSI went above the 20 region there, the 20 level. So when the stochastic RSI rises from oversold territory and goes above the 20 level, that is when the signal triggers a potentially bullish signal, in fact, on the price. Okay, and notice what happened. Bitcoin then rallied for the next several months. Okay, all the way from September, October last year to, of course, the levels we reached recently. So here's an example for you from the, this is the uptrend, the great uptrend we had on Bitcoin from 2016, 2017. So again, remember, I only applied this methodology, this stochastic RSI, in the way I'm showing it, in an uptrend. I would never apply it in a downtrend. Why? Because in a downtrend, you're going to get a lot of false signals, a lot of whipsaws. Now, going back to this particular chart on the weekly time frame, we can see that Bitcoin currently is, because its stochastic RSI is once again oversold, okay, below the 20 region. But I think it's quite likely in the next few weeks, the next several weeks, that this stochastic RSI is quite likely to rise and come out of its 20 region. Now, I don't know when that's going to happen, but all I would say is let's be patient and let's see when the stochastic RSI triggers a bullish signal in the next few weeks. And when that happens, as long as Bitcoin remains in an uptrend, which I think is likely, so as long as Bitcoin holds above the trend line and above 50K, and then if the stochastic RSI then gives us a nice signal above the 20 region here, that would be a very bullish sign, a very powerful bullish sign likely for Bitcoin in the next several months, potentially the rest of this year. Okay, now again, I don't know when that's going to happen, but we'll just have to be patient and wait for that stochastic RSI to eventually fire a signal above the 20 region, above the oversold condition region. All right, guys, so thank you very much indeed for watching this video. Make sure you watch my members video tomorrow on Sunday, because we'll cover stock markets, gold, Bitcoin, and I think we may have time to cover Ethereum tomorrow briefly as well. And of course, if you're not a member, you can join on that link you see right there. All right, guys, thank you very much indeed. Bye for now. Cheers.